All right. If you'll let me, we're going to have a conversation. If you'll let me, I'll do, a real quick welcome while the signal holds, while the audio holds. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham. I am super excited for our next installment in our interview series. I've been very excited for this lady to come on here and just share with us whatever she would like to from her IBC learning journey, coming through our client process, becoming a client, and just the whole spectrum of her experience. Whatever she's willing to share, I knew from the start that I was very likely to get this interview because of her personality, because of just her interactions that we had had together, our phone calls, how they had gone. So I knew I was likely, and yet I have had some fun text messages about how it was going to look, how it was going to go. And I told her, as always, I tell everybody, we're going to have a conversation as friends like we always do. So it is my pleasure to have Miss Felicia on the podcast today, on the YouTube today, on the channel. So Felicia, we worked through some technical difficulties to get here, mostly me being the caveman between the two of us, but welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for having me, and excited to share a little bit about this process that we've gone through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this is really neat, and you don't I'll take out anything you don't want me to share, and you just feel free to share with the wide world, whatever it is that you would share with the wide world. You are Felicia from South Carolina, and I'm Jesse from North Carolina. I feel safe in saying that much, and I just want to mention that because we're not from the same state. We didn't grow up together. We've known each other probably about a year, and that started from a mutual friend. And then we ended up having a conversation. Sure, we pulled some threads and figured out, oh, well, we know so-and-so, and we know so-and-so. But we didn't know each other, a little over a year ago or something like that. So if you would, whatever you'd like to share with the folks that might be listening to this, and they're learning about me, they're learning about what we do here, they're learning about becoming their own banker, anything that you'd be willing to share about who you are, what you do. And then let's just get right into the beginning of your IBC journey, please.
Yes. So I'm Felicia from South Carolina, and I am a licensed cosmetologist part-time and a full-time transformation coach. And I help people reach some healthy goals. And I also am a business coach to other coaches and help them grow their business. So I was introduced to Jesse through a mutual friend, just like you said. And Jesse's got some little YouTube snippets on social media, and he was talking about this concept of being your own banker. And it really interests me. Because number one, with my, previous careers and being a cosmetologist, number one, we often don't have a plan for our future because we are our own business owners. There's not usually a 401k plan or an easy way to create, some financial stability later on in our life. And so I just began to be very interested in what this concept was. And the mutual relationship I have with Jesse and the people that led me to Jesse were very trustworthy people. A band director we have in common that was like a lifelong friend of mine, and just reached out to Jesse and started asking him some questions. And Jesse, what did you make me do before we had our conversations about being your own banker, the book?
Right. Well, the normal things, of course, are the book first and foremost. You already mentioned we have the YouTube channel, we have the podcast. I've got years of information out there for sure, but I read Nash's book. Still. I'm 8 years into this process. My wife and I, we have multiple policies, multiple companies. We've been banking for a while now. I still reread that book. In fact, I'm going through a book review series right now. And I'm still just blown away by the simple one-liners that I can come across 8 years into this. And I'm still seeing it in a completely different way, paradigm shifting way. So I'm glad you brought that up about the book. We were eventually going to get there, but I'm going to circle back real quick. So Here's what I know. When folks are listening to what you just said, there was a lot of good stuff there about banking and about who you are, but they're going to want to know. You brought up the word band. They want to know what instrument you played. They want to know what instrument I played if we were both in the band. So ladies first, what did you play or do in the band?
I did not start out playing instruments in the band. I was a color guard person, and our mutual band director seen something else in me, and I was led to try out for drum major. And then I started with a tuba. Right, and my mom was like, what in the world do you have in your little Volkswagen coming home? And I ended up playing a bass clarinet, and I'm more of a vocalist. So I was in band as a color guard, winter guard, and eventually became a color guard instructor. But the instrument was just a few years in high school, and I've been a vocalist ever since for, a hobby. But yes, a little bit of everything, but drum major for 3 years in high school. And my son.
That's interesting for me to hear because of your adaptability, because of, again, going back to what I was saying about you, just what I gathered from our first conversations being on the phone, your personality. And of course, it doesn't surprise me that you ended up in a leadership position with the band. So I played drums. I played drums, just in case anybody is. We had a fun saying of, I've got more rhythm in my left pinky than you do in your whole body. If we're talking to anybody else, of course, in the band, because we're for the rhythm section. So that was what we did. But I don't have a hard time seeing you as the drum major of the band either. So very cool. I'm telling you, people were going to ask that.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's go then with where you're at, because I like what you said, and I appreciate you sharing, one of the things that you do. I know you've got a lot of irons in the fire. You're open to multiple streams of income. You're building your own businesses. You're doing a lot of things to impact other people's lives. I love that. But if I just zeroed in on what you're doing in your day-to-day profession of helping people with their beauty and everything, there's not a lot of structure, financially speaking, there, right? I mean, that's what I heard you say, that you're not walking in on a plan of, well, there are these benefits, this is what's available. It's just, I mean, you're there, you're working with your hands, you're building relationships and your clientele. But as far as a financial program or a financial system, it's kind of what you make of it, right?
Right. And in our country as a whole, there's not many corporate salon chains left. So, businesses are on a corporate level may have that financial structure, but from where I'm looking at, unless you're in education, big education with big companies, then a financial plan is not something that's common with most cosmetologists.
Right. And I also want to point out for folks, because there are plenty of folks that listen to this, they work for themselves. There are also plenty of folks that will listen to this, and they do have systems and programs and plans that are accessible to them. So it's a mixed bag, no question. But for you, all right, so you don't have this system or this plan that you walk in on in that particular profession with how it is. And, there's a part of me that says, well, I love that small business is what it is in America. It's amazing that you could go out and do something for yourself, learn a skill, build a client base, help people. So I like that, when I think macro level, and well, even for the individual as well. But we all come to this thing of, and I had a background in law enforcement and as a high school educator. Here you've been working for yourself, but I had never heard the words become your own banker. I had never heard of Nash's work. That wasn't required reading for me growing up or in school or anywhere else, right? So we've both come to this point where our backgrounds are what they are, but we get to this question of who controls the banking function in your life and what are you going to do with this book, such as it is. All right, let me focus in on that book point. So I remember us talking about, okay, well, do I have to read it? Could I listen to it? Because you're busy. You're always on the go. I get that. Plenty of folks say that.
Mhm.
But you listen to the book. What were maybe some of your nuggets, some of your big aha moments, if you could recall those for us?
Well, a lot of when you were talking about, you didn't know about the banking concept. I really think a lot about this book is a lot of simple ideas that we just were not introduced to. And a lot of times simplicity may seem a little bit unbelievable, if we don't know what's going on. And I kind of want to revert back just a little bit to, having your own business and not having those financial plans. But I believe now, after going through this process, that it's, more amazing that I've found this process than be in a corporate world and have those financial plans in place. Because through this relationship with you and learning about, the guarantees of other retirement plans, this one is a lot more guaranteed. And I had no clue about that before. So anyway, reading the book, I was introduced to a lot of concepts that were, well, I started reading the book. Very hard for me to read books, taking that time out, the attention, span that I feel like I have. So I ordered the book again and gave the extra copy to my 14-year-old son who loves to read. And then we popped the CDs in the car and we listened to them multiple times and with him in the car. So that was pretty cool for him to learn this with me. But, understanding, about interest and who is making money off the interest and how I can make money off interest myself, because you're going to loan money anyway, and why not give it back to yourself? Understanding, how much money I'm actually going to pay for a car using a car loan from a bank, as opposed to, using these concepts, was like, that's pretty straightforward. And, there's no hidden things. Why didn't I know this before? Like, that's huge aha moments, because we often, use our credit cards, loan money when we need to buy big things. With this concept, why not make your own money? So it's kind of a no-brainer after I really realized that it was kind of that easy. So
I love that, and I agree, and I'm glad you've said it more than once. That And I would say that the simplicity of the idea that you, Felicia, can become your own banker, Jesse, for him and his family, he can become his own. There is a virtue in the simplicity of just that statement, of that simple concept, like you're saying. Simplicity is a virtue. And of course, you let me know when you and your son were both listening to the book, to the CDs. I love hearing that, because I think about, well, okay, what age he is at, what age my children are at, and they are hearing these things. And we don't know yet how much is going to stick. And certainly I feel the responsibility of continuing those conversations, but also they've been introduced to the concept much earlier than you and I have been able to. So the potential there is very exciting to me, is what I'm saying. So I love hearing those things about, hey, Jesse, I'm driving through the car, and me and my boy, we're listening to this, we're reading this together. I love everything about that. And practically speaking, I think you brought up a bunch of points. I can only focus on one at a time. I think you mentioned something about being able to make money off of interest. And I think that with the market doing what it is now, the government doing what it is now, with just things looking the way that they do in the wide world, that everybody could have a greater appreciation for the control that we could have, right? I mean, working for yourself, you probably value a lot, like I do, the control that you have over your opportunities, over your business, over your efforts, etc. So there's really something to be said about controlling the banking function in your life, for one. And then you mentioned guarantees earlier, but So you brought up that point of interest. Here's something that's really neat. And here's why I'm talking about governments and markets and stuff. I think it's Warren Buffett that I've heard say the most important thing is not the return on your money, but it's the return of your money. So some folks, when they're looking at this idea, they're talking about it as an investment. They're talking about it in comparison to something else, whether that's qualified plan or some other asset or what have you. But of course, you and I, we've had the conversations of, well, what if you could do the thing that you're going to do anyway and get the money back? So not only, can we be talking about interest like you pointed out, and the average American is just bleeding out interest dollars. It's about a third of every dollar that we earn that is going out for the cars and homes and the things that we buy. But not only that, the principal. So, I mean, it's really powerful. It's a simple idea that you could get your principal back. You could get your interest back. Mm-hmm. You could get the profitability of what you decide as the banker to do with your money, to do with your interest. So I'm glad those are big takeaways. They're simple ones. You can get the money back. Bottom line, you can live your life the way you want to live your life. And if you're your own banker, you can get the money back. So if you would, I know you and I have spoken. Is there anything that you would share with folks about what you plan to do with your policy? What goals or things that you want to finance? I know that, prior to getting on this call, you reminded me, Jesse, I've not taken my first policy loan yet. And I tried to make a big point, of course, of saying you can't diminish, though, the fact of you've read the book, you've asked good questions, we've had strategy calls, you've gone through the application process. Maybe let me pause right there here in just a second. I'll ask you about that, what it was like going through our process. But you've gone through the process and you've written the check. James Nethery from Texas, he often says it's all conversation until somebody writes a check. Like, I love talking about the book. I love talking about these nuggets, but if I don't implement it, if you don't implement it, we're not our own bankers. Mm-hmm. So you've gone through the whole process. You own 2 policies at this point as a brand new client. That was a good move for you. It made sense for you. And you own those policies. You've been capitalizing those policies now. So maybe tell me those 2 things, if you would. You can take them one at a time, but maybe tell us a little bit about our oncoming process here, what it was like going through our process. And then maybe tell us a touch about your future plans of how you see yourself using your policy.
So the, onboarding process or, getting this started, I felt was very smooth. If we had questions, we would set up a call for the questions I had, and, just structuring. You were super helpful in talking with me about my plans and about what I had to offer to start my policies. And then you helped me structure those policies to what we needed currently, or what the maximum benefit right now. So it was a pretty simple process, had, a health screening, and everything went smooth.
Which you were excited about. You even told me about she's like, Jesse, I'm always glad to hear good news about my health.
Oh, yes.
That you are and everything.
Yes. It was great to hear, the good things about the health and to be able to, get this started. So I feel like the hardest, not even a hard part, was just simply starting it. After I just decided to do this and take this step, everything else was pretty easy. Calls and scheduled, and everything was a very easy process. Got email contact and policies started. I have lots of tools to start, using the policies. So all of that was the easy part. It was,
awesome.
I feel like I wanted to share that I didn't realize that when money is sitting, it's the value of the money is going down. So I actually had money sitting that I just had to decide, I'm going to take this and, start the policies. And then immediately, once I decided that and did it, that money is now growing. Correct.
That's
So
that's right.
instead of,
You and I talked about, okay, what's appropriate for you to pay as ongoing premiums. But so let me brag on you here, because the first human problem that Nash covers in his book is Parkinson's law. Most people tend to, that's just human nature. We tend to spend what we earn. And you had done a really good job of working hard, being diligent about putting capital aside, about building up money aside for your plans, for your dreams, for your ambitions, things that you want to do as a family and everything. And you did. You had some stagnant, lazy dollars is how we now know to describe those. That's right. And I know that you'd be familiar if I said something about, scripture having a parable about three individuals and what they did with money. And one of those individuals buried it in a hole in the ground. And yet it doesn't serve us there. And in fact, in today's market and environment, we're losing if it's being stagnant. We're missing out on the value that could be added to what we have worked so hard to build up. So you've done a great job. You beat Parkinson's. You were setting money aside really well, but you figured out that you could do something better with it, huh?
right. Yes.
Put it to work.
We're talking about the goals. We have some short-term goals. I feel like my car is now, got a big bullseye on it. It's been hit a couple times in the past couple months, and I've been wanting to upgrade my vehicle. It's not long before I'm going to be traveling to different bowling tournaments every weekend with my son, and want to have a dependable vehicle for that, and just upgrade the vehicle. So that's part of one of the things that I want to start using my own banking for, is to not have a car loan, and to use my own that interest to keep building up my own the cash value of the policies. I feel like any project that we have around the house that we would maybe put on a credit card or borrow money from, like a new pool liner very soon, we plan on using the banking method to fund that and then pay ourselves back. So that is just the starts. I don't know where it can go, but I really believe it can go somewhere big. And I will take those steps. And it's been, I feel like little baby steps, but the first step was a huge step. And I'm glad I took that. I'm excited to learn more about where this can go, and super excited that my son really, got involved in this early, and we have him a policy, and I feel like I'm setting him up for a different, type of setting him up for success, but giving him some long-term, what do they call that? Generational, wealth that he can, get started early. So that was a big part of me even reaching out. It was just having money, a retirement, or having funds to help him, so it's always part of the why.
That's right. That's right. And I remember those conversations. I remember how often they would circle back to, these plans are playing into my bigger plans of my family, of our next generation. And I guess how you were describing that makes me think of something that I've heard Zig Ziglar say. He would say, if you go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll always be able to see further. So it's like you're walking through the woods, and maybe you only see a certain amount of the path, and you got an idea of what the journey is going to look like, perhaps. But with your eyes, you might only see a certain distance. But once you get there, well, you see around the corner, and you see the next stretch of it. So again, if I go back to Nash's principles, he talks about thinking long range. And sure, it's so easy for many of us to overlook. I'll even have people ask me, Jesse, what do I need to do with my policy? You don't have to do anything. You could just build up capital. You could just build up your banking system. But when there comes a time, because you drive cars, I drive cars, we're going to drive cars, why would you not finance that? And it's just not something that we should overlook. We got cars parked in the driveway. Who finances that? Who controls that? And we can do that for ourselves now. And the pool liners, because we're coming up into, we're about to have some 80-degree days this week in February. It's crazy. So that's right. The pool days are ahead for us. But I love it. The pool liners, the cars, have something reliable and good for making it to the bowling tournaments. I love that. I love everything about how you've circled back a couple of times now to talking about the next generation. I remember us having those conversations about what could passive income look like for you, having a plan now. It's very different from maybe how you started, in your traditional career, not having a system, not having a plan before you. Now you're controlling what you're going to be able to have and use in the future for passive income. And then not only that, absolutely, that transfer of wealth to the next generation, tax-free. So I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. I want to say a big thank you for coming on here. The folks don't know, your patience in letting me deal with the technical issues that I have on my end. I'm not in my usual space, and I just appreciate you sharing your time. I appreciate you being patient with me. I appreciate you coming on here. I know that means a lot to a lot of people to be able to hear somebody else's experience, and you've absolutely been a pleasure to work with. Do you have any parting thoughts for anybody? Anything that you'd like them to take home with?
Yeah. Big choices in my life have required me to have faith and not hope that something's going to work, like actually believe in it and take the jump. So, I believe in this after talking with you, after reading Nash's book, and you just have to have faith, just like we have faith in God. So moving forward, take the leaps, take the jumps, have the faith, and because we're just holding ourselves back if we don't take some leaps and have the faith. That's it.
That's right. I love it. And I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate how you've also focused on what you did to go about learning this process. And even how you said just a minute ago about how you're continuing to learn. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you tuning in here with me, having this phone call. And I look forward to our next one. So I'm going to let you go. I know you got other meetings to get to, other phone calls to get to. But thank you so very much for being here with me today. Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Take care. I'm happy to be here. Are you happy to be here? Kicking and screaming? Confirm, if you would, with me that you can see me, that you can hear me.
You're not under the water or a robot.
Okay. I am a caveman, though. It's taken me a while to get here. So I just can't have it all. That's all. I just can't have it all. I want you to know that I'm a prepared kind of guy. I've got pen and paper, but no program here. We're just going to have a conversation. So